I'd say it's very close because both decks very much rely on hitting the early curve, and their reactive capabilities are few and far between. For the Druid and the Hunter, both are running Guardian Aug Merchants, so those are something you can use to ping off opposing 1 health minions potentially. But for the Hunter, the Truing Crescent is the big one. Yeah, this is the best way for Surrender to actually come back if he's fighting from behind. Even if you're on the play, I think this is absolutely a must-keep card. Whereas for Posesi, there is response available in Park Panther. That is reactive capability that is quite precious, but it comes quite late. So I wonder if he'll think about keeping that. He's on the coin though, so there's more merit to it.
There's kind of two halves of the deck going on right here, because Park Panther, I agree, is just a well above statted card. Like it's a very above power, average power level card in terms of fighting for these board battles at the start of the game. But when you have Oracle of Elune in hand, you're looking for Bone Chewer Brawler, you're looking for maybe even the Watchtower, the Watch Post as well, just anything that synergizes with this Oracle. And so I do agree that his best shot is just hoping it's a relatively slow start from Surrender, Oracle sticks, because if it does, the game essentially ends.
True. I really don't know how likely that is of happening. Like, obviously, Posesi also had a 1-drop, so that helps. But if Surrender is able to land even a 2-mana 3/2, then suddenly things like Adorable Infestation get a little bit scary. But it's true that just playing the 3-mana 2/4 Oracle of Elune is a very threatening minion on its own. Not the worst stats in the world, so I don't hate it. But Posesi is actually just going to coin out Adorable Infestation right now. He's all in on gaining the board as early as now in order to protect his Elune 2 turns later.
Well, I'm thinking if Felmore doesn't come down now, it's never coming down ever. So as bad as it is in this matchup, let's play it.
I'm just not sure if Surrender is meant to double trade the Squirrel or trade Marsul and then send the other one face, because he does have Truing Crescent to get to the other half of the Vibrant Squirrel. But if by that logic, then maybe you should just use the weapon to deal with a Marsul Cub. But Posesi gets one of the Satisfied Squirrels immediately, which is insane.
Oh,
and the peasant.
Look at that Squirrel. The Peasant, the 2-1 army coming together. This is just an unstoppable economy right now. Cards being drawn, nuts getting drawn as well. There is nothing that Surrender can do about this right now.
And indeed, he is just going to equip the weapon here rather than getting the Mankrik online just to start staving off some of this pressure on board. But Posesi gets this additional draw now, which means closer and closer to 4 acorns!
Oh my god, disgusting. Posesi quite literally the nuts.
Yeah, I don't think it's ever a Loon here. Just Annoyatron creates another annoying target for the Felmaw that's waking up next turn, protects his Peasant, potentially, and then when he plays a Loon on turn 4, he can immediately get value from her and possibly even put Divine Shield with the Guardian Aug Merchant.
Oh, it's so clean. There's just nothing that Surrender can do to fight back against this. Like you said, the reactive capability is not really there. You've got Warsong into Rhino with the weapon equipped, which is a lot of damage, but clearly Surrender is not as adept as Dawn in terms of making his Felmors go face, because honestly, an all-out somehow getting their face race game plan, I think is the only chance for Surrender of getting there.
Well, this weapon does allow him to clear the Annoyatron, and then he can play Mankrik and Guardian on the other Guardian. Again, the Peasant lives, so it's icky. But I don't think the Rhino is getting there fast enough, so yeah, I do favor 3+1 over Warsong here.
Okay, I guess to be fair, he does have a good amount of stats in play, and next turn, Warsong into Volpatinger does again put a lot more stats in play. It's maybe not as dire as I was thinking.
Oh, but this Peasant, it's too crazy how much value it's gotten. It's just lived 3 turns already. Okay, a Loon plus Marsul Cub, double trade into 5-1 and 2-1. It's not that great, but I'm just looking at this as a bridge turn, right? If anything significant sticks, you go Arbor up. If it doesn't, you have second Elune plus the Bone Chewer Brawler. That seems really powerful.
Does seem good, doesn't it?
The alternative is to take a full clear by going Hero Power and then I guess Bone Chewer Brawler, but I think that's extremely slow. Maybe Hero Power double Marsul.
What to do?
because the hero power plus the 3/1 can kill Mancrik, the other 2/1/1s can deal with 5/1, 2/1. And then if you have 2 more Souls, that's 2 worse targets for the Felmaw to go into. But overall, I agree, it's slower on average than just doing this and maintaining the Divine Shield on the Peasant as an enormous nuisance.
Yeah, you just want to make it so they have to invest resources into killing off the Oracle of Elune so that your Arbor up next turn is more likely to get value.
Okay. So he can swing into the Elune and the Mancrik will kill her because that hit the board. Well, it didn't hit the board first, but this Felmaw was like dormant for some time. I think that's how the order works, right?
You know what? I don't actually know.
Oh, okay, I didn't know that. I thought the Mancrik would go.
Yeah. I guess it was played first, so it does activate first that way. Interesting.
Okay. Well, you learned something new, which is, you know, still a good outcome for Surrender in the fact that he still got Rush out of a minion, but the slight downside is that he isn't able to kill the Peasant and play the Warsong Wrangler. But it's okay, he's managed to rest back the board.
And now I agree, the Arbor up is just trading too unfavorably against all these high attack, low health minions on the other side. So setting up for a big turn with the second Oracle and then Arbor up next turn. I think that is probably going to be the nail in the coffin for Surrender.
This is, yeah, nothing trades very nice, does it? He can ping off the Peasant with the Guardian Aug Merchant. He can kill the Oracle of Elune with his... Oh gosh. Yeah, the Felmaw was there before the 3/4, so it's not that nice. But maybe you still do it anyway. You can send the Felmaw face. Because I'm looking at just playing as though Arbor Up isn't there and sending the rest of it face. Like after you kill Elune and Peasant. I'm not interested in killing squirrels. That might just be worse for you in the long run. Okay.
I guess, yeah. Piercing shot, very awkward draw as well. Now, do you not want to VT with the 3/4 at all?
Okay, let's count it up, right? So if he swings into the Elune, sends 9 face, Posesi is at 14. You have a piercing shot in hand, which a lot of the time deals 5 plus hero power. So if you stick some damage, maybe it works out. But he is going to VT at least the 2/1/1s, which is a halfway point that I can get behind because he's not killing squirrels. I think those are actively bad for him to kill right now.
Fair enough. Yeah, you just don't want to give them any more nuts.
And he's alive because of the VTs as well, because the Arbor Up is only going to push 4 damage. 4 extra, I mean.
Yeah, exactly. And so it... Oh, I wonder if it does actually end up even being Arbor Up. Park Panther's pretty good here, right? To go double trade. You can then go with the Arbor Up next turn. It's finally getting to the point where Surrender needs some extra value.
Yeah, completely agree. This Park Panther, late though it may be, is enough in this scrappy board battle. And even though the Arbor Up likely only hits 1 minion next turn, because Surrender is going to pierce the Park Panther, probably still seals the game.
Yeah, we need to see, I don't know, Rhino, Barrack, Kodo Bane, some way to just cheese out the lethal damage, because dealing 5 here with the piercing shot as well.
Both though.
That's true. Yeah, okay.
I agree. Sorry to interrupt you there. It
No worries.
does still seem like it has to be more than just this top deck, because even just 2 4/3s here was big, but now there are squirrels as well.
And the mule! No, we don't get to see it. Posesi, of course, insta-slams the one that breaks the spectator as the unfortunately encumbered pack mule bug is still in play. Hopefully we can get the spectator fixed before the end of this game, but to be honest, I think you and I can both agree it's a very, very slim shot that Surrender pulls this one back.
I know that Monsanto is chaotic neutral. Is that what Toddle said about him for playing the pack mule? I straight up think Posesi's chaotic evil. Doing this without any regrets to a man who's just announced his retirement and doing this to the stream as well. We have so few opportunities to watch Surrender left. Posesi, why do you play this mule?
Oh man, you know what? An alignment chart for APAC GM would be a lot of fun to do. I might try and make that for Twitter.
Oh, yeah.
Where different people would fit. But either way, we did get the news that Posesi won that game. Unfortunately, we couldn't get to see the end of it, but I think we can fill in the blanks for that one. Arbor Up was played on a board, and it was pretty much all gassed out for Surrender. We saw the important parts of the game. Well played by Posesi. I think not swayed too early by an aggressive use of the Arbor Up, instead going for the strategy of just playing all his stats, getting as much stuff on board as possible, protecting the peasant, and allowing it to reap him all the resources that he needed.
Yeah, I think it was very, very cleverly done. Even though we did have different ideas about the mulligan at the beginning, I was talking about how Park Panther can be one of the few ways you can respond when you've fallen behind, and it did become important. It was way later than turn 3, which was what I was expecting. If you keep it on coin, you are just going to play it on turn 3 a lot of the time. And Posesi also did end up on that Oracle of Elune game plan, but she herself did not come down on turn 3. He deviated time and time again, trying to build these awkward boards until he could get in a position where the Oracle of Elune could immediately get value. And I cannot overstate just how important that peasant was as well. Because of all the squirrels he had played, those additional cards got him closer and closer to the 2/1s coming out for free, which did end up being too much pressure for Surrender. They were spaced out perfectly as well, I should say.
Quite right. Posesi now moving on to a slightly more complicated deck, of course, in the Garrote Rogue, a deck that I have really liked Posesi's attitude to. As I've said multiple times, it feels like he's very cautious with this deck. He's unlikely to make the kind of play that Shaxi went for against the Warrior, where it was very all-in, maybe a turn earlier than would be safe, although we agree in that instance it was correct for Shaxi to do so. We honestly haven't really had to see Posesi make those kind of very fast plays where you're forced into an uncomfortable lethal play with Garrote Rogue, because every time he's gone for it, he's just made his life as easy as possible with a very simple Garrote Rogue lethal.
Yeah, he has always consistently found lines that allow himself to buy one more turn, make sure his mana goes up by another crystal, make sure he's thought out exactly what he needs to do on the next turn, even though there was a possibility of getting lethal on the turn before. It might look cool, but the best thing to do is play to your best percentages, and I think Posesi understands that very well. And against Handlock, this is certainly a matchup where you can do something like that. Even just yesterday from Gur in particular, I remember how he bought himself a whole extra turn just by playing Fire Sale, which he discovered from One Thief. I think Posesi's school of thinking might have become infectious to other APAC players because you can just try and clear the board or stave off enough of it that you're not dead to Battlegrounds Battlemaster. If you're at 26 as Rogue, it's the same as being on 1 versus Handlock if you're going to kill them the next turn anyway.
Oh man, I need to stop looking at Surrender. I'm just enjoying seeing him in GM. I don't know, there's something about his mannerisms as he plays these decks, just his expression that, I don't know, it conveys an emotion that I didn't necessarily know existed. It's not like dissatisfaction, it's just kind of like, okay, here's my hand, let's try and do something with it. And just general dissatisfaction at all times as well, it feels like.
Yeah, that's
again, I can't put it into words. I'm not a poet, okay? But Surrender's face says it all. And I'm just going to miss him. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, you could have just cut to the chase and said that. We'll miss him too, Derek. I'll miss him too. Everybody's going to miss him. Oh, I need to get it together and cast this game, though. Okay. Yeah, just keep tapping here. I don't think that's warranting an unstable Shadow Blast just yet. He wants to get to the point where the Noel costs as cheap as possible, get the Giant down, because, again, we're always looking for that big turn from the Handlock where all the threats come down at once alongside a Cult Neophyte. We saw Alan exemplify that very, very well because he also has the Altar of Fires to even speed up the rate at which he gets the 1 mana 6/6s.
Yeah, exactly. Alan was doubling down on playing the Altars of Fire, not necessarily for disruption, but just to speed up his own game plan, which is, I think, something that a lot of players don't necessarily take all too much advantage of. Interesting hand now for Posesi after going Neophyte on 2 and 3, I think was perfectly reasonable, just to try and make your opponent's starting turns a little bit more awkward and clear some of that hand space out. But now we're looking at Prep secret passage? Yeah, I'm just wondering how you manipulate the rest of your mana beforehand. Is it coin passage? Is it coin prep passage? Just passage still allows you to play the... oh, wow. Still allows you to play Shroud. But here he's going coin contact prep passage.
This is very interesting, an aggressive use of the field contact, but I can see where Posesi's head was at, right? Because if you just go passage and it's a hand where you dump cards but don't hit any of the card draw, then his next turn is actually still just as awkward, right? With double contact, no Octobot, not enough fuel for it. So he's kind of taking this opportunity where even if you do hit a passage like this, where the only actual card generation was the Kazakus, he can turn these two Battle Cry minions into cards that will return to his original hand and then feed the second field contact. Still, I don't think it's enough necessarily to go with the field contact because he only ends up with the crap out of the end of it, which is unfortunate. But it was an interesting and risky play.
There were so many interesting spots all the way along as well. Like, he could have theoretically ended with, to draw effectively an extra card, he could have played his Ethereal Orc Merchant because that one gets shuffled back into the deck, whereas the second Penflinger that he played obviously would not. That would still be in hand right now, so he would just have an extra Penflinger in hand. But then you've lost an Ethereal Orc Merchant, which is really debatable as to how liberal you can be with that key combo piece in the mid-game of this matchup. So I agree. Not a play that I expected Posesi of all players to make, but it has, I guess, thinned out some of his deck at least.
And for Surrender, this does look like one of the few opportunities you can get a good Soul Rend, where you're not really doing anything else with the turn. I guess you miss a tap, which is a bit sad, but he can get closer and closer to 10 cards in deck. So there he goes. For the Soul Rend, there was a possibility to go Mortal Coil first, which would of course not thin the deck any further, but it would just replace the Mortal Coil with a card from his deck in that situation. He says it's not worth it, would rather have that in hand. I think that's reasonable, and probably goes for a backfire here, even though he overdraws.
Yeah, the alternative, of course, being Baron Scavenger, but I think because you're very rapidly homing in on the point where you can play it for one alongside all your other big threats as well, I absolutely agree. He's got all the cards he needs now, aside from maybe a Neophyte. The only thing he needs is just to delete cards from his deck, or draw them.
He disagrees, though. Would rather weave in the taps as much as possible, which, you know, does get the Giant cheaper over the course of 2 turns if you can tap and backfire every single turn. But now Posesi with the Kazakus top deck, that is a very welcome sight. He needed something that was big value from this point, and he picks a 1-cost Golem. I was honestly thinking in a situation like this, maybe you take a 5 and try to aim for draw 2, but he is just committing to going field contact next turn, it feels like.
Yeah, I think his avenue back into this game is... realistically, it has to be lethal on turn 8, right? Maybe you can somehow maneuver it to be turn 9, but you have to go field contact next turn, hope to draw an Octobot somewhere along the way so that you can draw down to 10 cards in deck and then try to go for the win next turn. I think playing a 5-mana Golem next turn is too much of a mana expenditure if you actually plan on winning the game.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. Whereas for Surrender, there is the capability of cheapening the Giants by a lot this turn. With the Raise Dead and the Drain Soul and the Tamsin in hand and the Bristleback being able to go face and also contribute to that health total changing. Raise Dead for 1 minion I think is still reasonable. But I kind of rather he target the Kazakus with the Drain Soul, but he's actually going...
Oh, wow. Touch, backfire, getting these Giants cheap. I think he's still holding back for a turn. You can play 1 Giant, I guess, here is fine. Oh, okay, just going for both. I was wondering, again, if we go for this big swing turn next turn, but I guess getting the Giants down now, saying it's very unlikely you remove them, and then next turn you go with the Scavenger plus the Neophyte. This is, it's going to be difficult for Posesi to answer.
So obviously that turn looked a bit strange from Surrender with the Raise That for 1 minion trade in and then touch your own guy, where you could have killed the Kazakus with the Drain Soul, but what he did was dump 2 cards from his hand instead of 1. and that allowed him to not overdraw from the backfire played afterward. Posesi's going in now. There's the Octobot you were talking about, and he finds Shadow Step at the end. That's so clutch.
Last card.
This play only works if you can preserve that field contact at the end of it, because it's the last copy. Without that, there's no guarantee you can really see the bottom of his deck, but suddenly Posesi's back in it.
He is, but Surrender's turn is absolutely no slouch. Tap up to 10 cards, a Netheron Scavenger, Neophyte. You can clear the board as well if you want to, and heal up. There's so much mana available on this turn.
Yep. Tap, Scavenger, sorry, Netheron, then Scavenger, and then Neophyte. All the mana spent perfectly, everything but the stealth minion cleared. So much pressure represented on the board, 25 points of it. Oh man. So
and this realistically has to be it for Posesi, right? This is the final turn.
I think you conceded with that animation. I don't know. Okay. No.
I think that was giant punch face, yeah.
I see. Well,
let's go.
With Neophyte, I don't think you can win this turn.
You're just dead.
One Thief? Find One Thief with Passage, try to hit Flurry.
Oh, okay. I guess you have double Brain Freeze still in the deck as well, right?
Yeah. I think it's a Passage turn. Oh, sorry, that's wrong player.
Still good to know.
Uh-huh. Okay. Yeah, both one Thief, both Brain Freeze left. So obviously, if you play Passage and One Thief, that's 3 mana used. Each Brain Freeze will be 2 mana.
Sure.
But you can still potentially play Brain Freeze and Flurry, which sometimes freezes enough targets to survive. Okay.
That's 1 Brain Freeze, but he needs the Flurry as well.
Think so. Oh my god, he hit it! Oh my god!
No way!
No way! Okay, so you Flurry first, Brain Freeze, whatever, big target is not frozen. He's doing it, Derek! He's doing it!
That's so sick. What a spot by you and Posesi. Oh my goodness. I would have lost the game so convincingly by now.
Yeah, there's just no way to win on that turn with the Neophyte and not enough battle cries in hand. So he has bought himself a whole extra turn here. Wait, is there Battle Master for Surrender? There is not. Yep. So he can heal. I do think it's important for Surrender to get out of any breakpoints he can if Posesi's in a position where he can't get to the bottom of his deck and maybe needs to just try and draw bleeds off the top. So I like playing 1-1-1-3 here, or maybe skip the Knoll, go Bristleback, Drain Soul, Baron Scavenger, and yeah.
Yeah, it's just about healing on this turn, right? And trying to get down the Neophyte. The other one was burned.
Nice.
And so he's trying to res it here. He misses, which is very unfortunate when your opponent just hit a 1 outer flurry off of a One Thief. That doesn't feel fair.
Oh, I mean, it's clever for Surrender, though, to put the Neophyte in the Raised Dead pool.
Yes,
I didn't even spot that. I'm gonna miss things like that there.
Every time we see a good play, Surrender would have done that.
He would have. Okay, as he's taking the mana rather than the draw here, I think it's fine. He still has Dwindle, Og Merchant, Brain Freeze. Derek, I think he just gets there.
I think this is it. Yep, he should have plenty of mana spare, right? 2 mana Garrote is the most expensive thing he still needs to play.
Yeah, another... okay, there's the Octobot as well. I forgot he had another one. This is Giga, Mega, Super Lethal.
Yep. Well over. Just board space, which of course he can manage by attacking him with the One Thief. Absolutely nothing can stop him here. 2 games up to 0 by Posesi. And what a clever spot there to be able to try and buy himself 1 more turn. Again, from Posesi. It's this constant recognition of any other outs he has. It's a very level-headed approach to the matchup because... as I clearly was saying, I would have already started the combo instantly, because when you do want to go for the combo with this deck, you don't have time to think. You have to let your muscle memory do the work and just start playing instantly, or you will rope out and you will lose the game. But Posesi realizing there was an alternate approach, you also very correctly realizing there was another approach. He took it as slim of an outer as it was, and it worked! That was such a cool win.
Yeah, phenomenal. I honestly, like, even the line of trying to go in immediately, like you said, there was some percent of the time you can win because Surrender wasn't at full health, right?
Yeah.
So if you just draw some of the bleeds, then you can get that done. But I really don't know what the odds of that are. It's so impossible to calculate as a normal human being. And it just kind of felt like on instinct, it was so unlikely that I'd rather go for the other unlikely outs of finding a flurry from the secret passage. But obviously it was never ever guaranteed there either way. Posesi took a risk, was rewarded for it, and I don't even know if that was the most interesting part of the game, Derek. I want to go back and talk about the secret passage turn with the field contact. Man, I've just never really seen that with only 2 mana remaining.
It was just weird all round, right? Because the big distinguishing factor there for me was the fact that there's no minions on the other side of the board. And so being able to go Secret Passage means that there's a lot of cards you just can't play or are just bad because, you know, Brain Freeze, you have to target your own minions, Prize Plunderer, the Orc Merchants, Penflinger as well. You very often end up destroying your own board. But that's still also a problem if you go with the field contact line of play, because if you get Brain Freeze, the only thing you can target is your own contact a lot of the time. It becomes very difficult to actually get that chain with no minions on the other side of the board. And so I do think I probably would have just ended up with Passage there without the field contact, or maybe even just waited 1 extra turn before you go in. But it did hold some amount of merit for Posesi.
He is on the brink of knocking out Surrender for the week. We will see Surrender again in playoffs, but it honestly feels like Posesi's a villain right now because everybody wants to see Surrender in the season. Oh man, unfair to Posesi to paint him that way, of course, because he is already one of our representatives to the World Championship, and Surrender has not given up by any means just yet. Handlock versus Hunter, we've talked about how this can feel so one-sided in either direction, this matchup, and I do think the touch of the Nathrism is required, at least one of them in the early game, to make sure Handlock can really turn the corner by the time they get to the Blood Shard Bristlebacks.
Posesi with the awkward half of the deck right now, though, with all the burn spells, a Barrack Kodobane that is obviously a quick shot or aimed shot draw away from not drawing him what he needs, and there with just shots. This hand is not doing all too much.
Are we getting DMCA'd for that? Yeah, I mean, this hand has one game plan and one only, which is not very likely to get there versus Surrender's hand, which has enough healing to offset all these shots. Surrender can do Fabled Backfire versus Face Hunter. He's just that safe.
Surrender's like, okay, I don't really know what's happening here, but I think I like it with being able to go Backfire with nothing on board. Gold Giant Null, Flesh Giant, Touch of the Nathrism. It's such a good hand for this mid portion of the game as well. Okay.
Saving grace for Posesi. Next turn, Barrack Kodobane has a 50-50 of pulling Mancrick's wife because we've already seen one aim shot used. Yeah, you can start Tour Guide tap. Gold Charnel still costs 2 by that point. I think he's looking to use that to get rid of the Mancrick. And with the mana spare, he can either play the other Tour Guide or touch on the Marsoul Cub. I'd like to see what he gets off the tap from Tour Guide first, though.
Yeah, the only other consideration for me is whether you go tap, null, and then Tour Guide, because I'm just wondering about mana considerations for Giant next turn. Like, if you spend the 2 mana tap this turn and give yourself a 0 mana tap next turn, does that open up Giant as a possibility? I don't think so, though. Maybe with the Raised Dead, however, it does start to open it up.
You can give yourself the 0 mana tap again, right? By playing the other Tour Guide at the end of it.
True. Yeah, that's a good point.
But this one obviously maximizes over 3 turns instead, the amount of discounts you can get on the Giant. But I'm not sure if Surrender's that safe, even though Posesi's had this slow of an opener. But he likes your line a bit better. We'll see how it pans out. 50-50 for Posesi. I think he missed based on his facial expression.
That sucks so much. And as well, I mean, again, for Surrender, The one thing that he did actually make with this play is because his opponent has such a slow hand, you have a relatively good read on Rhino. Like, at least that's one of the cards they're likely to have, and not leaving a tour guide on board does stop that possibility completely.
True. Yeah, that's a good catch. He by no means needs to play it because Posesi's had kind of a slow game plan thus far, so just unstable Shadow Blast on this, potentially.
That sounds good to me, yeah.
Gets the Giant down to 2, even though Surrender just takes 1 damage. Oh, it could be Giant this turn. Or not, okay.
Why? Yeah, 1 mana off, but I think he's just setting up for a bigger play next turn with like Giant, Neophyte, which probably locks out the game with a BGBM in hand as well.
Agreed. I was thinking if it was Giant, then you don't clear the Barrack, but
yeah,
agreed, it's probably not worth leaving the Barrack up. There's already a lot of pressure. Posesi backing a 4, I really don't even know what. All the burn is in hand right now, and there's just no hope of getting back on board. Maybe Rhino?
Yeah, Rhino's technically more burn, but it's just like he doesn't need the Rhino. He has enough stuff in hand to kill his opponent, I think, at this point. It's just about having the time to play it all, which isn't really there.
With these options, though, I still do think you take the Rhino, but
yeah,
don't play it this turn. It's probably like Piercing Shot.
In which case, did we even like the tracking at the start of this turn? Like, it could have been Piercing Shot, Hero Power, Quick Shot, Aim Shot, Hero Power, Quick Shot, Hero Power, and then tracking at the end of all of it. Like, 1 mana on these with this many cards in hand is an awful lot to use.
I agree. Looking at this turn again, I think Piercing Shot and Quick Shot this turn.
Sure.
That would have dealt 8 damage, and then you have Aim Shot, Quick Shot, and the 6 damage Hero Power the next turn. Which is obviously very flimsy if Surrender has any measure of healing, but maybe was Posesi's best avenue back into the game.
Okay, so now with the Bristleback, he can actually get that online right now and just go... Or maybe he doesn't even need that. He can just go like a Netheron Scavenger Flesh Giant if he wants to. He can make the biggest army for 4 mana that I've ever seen.
He can discreetly do the math because he's seen a Barrack and it wasn't Mankirk's Way, so he knows there's another Aim Shot in hand. This Hero Power already deals 4 because of the previous Aim Shot. So if it deals 6 plus 9 plus Quick Shot... It'll deal 6 plus the Aim Shot is 9 plus the Quick Shot is 12. So he was actually safe, I think, but there's no problem if you heal as well because he still has enough pressure anyway.
Exactly. It's always closing out the game next turn. The Neophyte just not really necessary at this point because it doesn't matter how many cards you have. You can't play them all, even if they cost their natural cost. And here, Battlegrounds Battlemaster getting the job done and closing things out. I don't even think it's actually necessary. There's just lethal on board for Surrender. And so Posesi throws it down. Just a weird hand for Hunter, drawing the wrong half of the deck, missing on the wife as well that maybe could have made the difference. And just a bad hand. Not much you can say about it.
Yep. Surrender's back in it though. First win on the board. Some potential to take a mirror or just a good matchup with the OTK Demon Hunter, which is probably the most notable exclusion from Posesi's lineup. It feels like overall a very high power level deck at the moment that I'm surprised to see Posesi omit. Maybe he's trying to not get it targeted by something, but I don't really know what a target Demon Hunter lineup looks like. Paladin? And then what else?
Yeah, it just kind of beats everything else, right? Like, there's no aggro decks that really get there. Shadow Priest is gone, and even that was not that great against OTK Demon Hunter anyway, yeah. I don't see it.
But Posesi's still doing well without it in his lineup, which goes to show that there are many different ways you can approach this meta, all in all. But Surrender's going to take the mirror first. This time he's on the coin, which often feels like a bit of a disadvantage, but Surrender's consistently hit the True Aim Crescent, which is amazing to make sure he has these reactive capabilities. And it's perfect versus this 2-1 from Posesi.
Yeah, it's still something for Posesi, because otherwise he was just left absolutely high and dry with nothing to throw down in these early turns. And even against this, even though he's losing on board in these first few turns, 2, 3, 4, even if that 4 is a weapon rather than another minion, is pretty good. If he can get a wife in a timely fashion in this game, he should be alright.
Velma or Neophyte here for Surrender. I definitely favor Velma, just to get that to wake up as soon as possible. This is one of the few windows where it doesn't feel too slow just yet. And the question is, does Surrender favor getting 3 extra damage face? Oh, is he not going to trade at all? I wonder.
Yeah,
he could have used the weapon there to kill it, but yeah, he's just leaving his 3-2 on board, which is, you know, there's not that many punishes. Even if there's quick shot, he can still deal with the Neophyte with his weapon next turn.
Yeah, exactly. And both players saying here, right, I'm the aggressor. No, I'm the aggressor. You have to trade into me. And here for Surrender with some pretty cool tricks up his sleeve, I do think you probably actually trade now. You can go for Org Merchant on your 3-2 and then actually kill both minions, right?
Yeah.
If you attack into the Neophyte and then weapon into the man crit, looks so clean.
Yeah, I love that. Can play his own Neophyte as well.
Yeah.
And then turn 4 looks a little bit awkward, but he's very likely to top deck something to go with the Demon Companion. And from there, it just never stops the Rhino. He's just so far in the lead.
Oh, I guess you could theoretically go face at the end and not trade into the Neophyte. Okay.
Aww.
I guess this keeps the heart of the previous game plan, which is just go face wherever possible, and still allowing your opponent to, well, forcing your opponent to make the trades, really, because you are saying, I am still the aggressor.
That's true. I mean, he has that initiative because he has the weapon, but I kind of like making sure the Felmo has one less bad target on board when it wakes up next turn. Surrender disagrees, so it's all to the dome here, and now Posesi, this Rinling's rifle is really the only realistic way he can come back. We're looking for Explosive Trap exclusively.
Pretty much, and there it is, and especially with a 50% chance for the Felmore to proc it itself at the start of this turn. Oh.
Okay, amazing that trading was being the good boy here.
Yeah, I mean, was it though? I don't know. It's kind of tough because now everything just dies anyway. It was all pretty bad no matter what. That explosive trap is so huge for Posesi.
And Surrender realizes he has to proc it because the only play this turn is developing more minions that die to the explosive trap. And Posesi has now the opportunity to fight back with another explosive trap. I don't even know if he take another one from this point.
I mean, the big one here is obviously Mancrick's wife that you're looking for. Misses again, this time a 1 in 3, rather than just a 50-50. But I guess even without that, all these cards in hand, quick shot, aim shot, he is very close to locking out this game.
I don't know what the secret is, though. So, if he's thinking about Rhino, right, the pack tactics actually makes it so that Surrender can attack 2 things with Rhino in one turn. If you take Snake, right, you have to use the natural attack of the Rhino to actually get the snakes to live, right? Unless you trade with Volpertingers first.
Right.
So that's actually also pretty dangerous to Rhino, right? If you take Snake, then Surrender trades Volpertinger, the snakes wake up, then the Rhino tramples over a snake, and Surrender can then swing into the barrack for more damage. I really don't know.
And if they play Rhino next turn, they're not just dead, right? You don't have enough damage to do so.
If he takes 3, he goes down to 12, but yeah, Posesi still doesn't have enough burst from hand to beat that. In the end, he takes the pack tactics. Surrender's going to test first for Explosive Trap. I think that's reasonable.
Surrender frozen as well? I think maybe... both players have done here. I hadn't even realized at first. I think the game is still hopefully all good and they're able to play on.
So is it Rhino at all is the question for Surrender? I think the turn should start with testing Volpertinger into... I really didn't know which place, but again, if you trade into the barrack first, then the snake trap is good for you, right? So I think that's reasonable for Surrender to test with Volpertinger. I thought he would still go face and maybe just deviate from Rhino altogether, but he still gets to push a lot of damage with the way this works out. Did he miss the other Volpertinger going face?
Oh. Yeah, I think he might have done, actually, right?
But I also didn't realize that interaction once again until I saw it. I hate this so much, Derek. I never know how it works.
I know, yeah. We're never going to stop messing that up. And usually we can rely on Surrender to look somewhat put out to guide us as to whether or not he made a misplay, but obviously not so much here. Anyway, final turn for Surrender, and it doesn't come into effect. He's unable to get the defense. Posesi ecstatic at getting the win and guaranteeing himself first seed at the end of the season. Obviously, he had the 5 points coming into last season, but even factoring those out, he's still coming in very easily in third place at the end of this all, and he could theoretically still have ended up the winner, depending on how things go without those 5-point bonuses. It's just been a monumental season for Posesi.
A monumental year. It's amazing that he's been so consistent, winning last season and having the possibility to win this season again, even factoring out the extra points. That, I think, just goes to show the hard work that he's put in throughout the entire year. Very impressive stuff. Again, we are very sad to see Surrender lose at any point, because it feels like every match we get to see him is a blessing, a scarcity at the moment. But I think Posesi has deserved to take this series indeed. Glory versus Lambi series will be our next match of the day, which is another exciting one because both these players are hovering in the limbo zone right now where they're not relegated, but they're currently not through to playoffs. So with a couple more points, that could turn on its head.
That's right. The really big goal that they're looking for is to outclass Okashinsuke. He's currently at 11 points, out of contention after another 0-2 week this week, but could, of course, be dethroned by any of the players of Glory.